guys, what's going on, everybody? Marquise here. Super honored to be here yet with another episode. You guys know me already. You've been rocking with me for a little bit. Keisha, your host. And today we have a very, very prominent guest on the podcast, Cameron Kinley. Some of you may know him from his story, with the Naval Academy and his journey to the NFL. But this conversation is going to be a little bit different. We're going to dive into not just his journey, but really more importantly, who Cameron Kinley is as an individual. What made him become the man that he is today, and his family, his background, and just a little bit about his story. In addition to his true story, within the Naval Academy. But for those of you who may not know, I'm going to allow Cameron to kind of chime in a second. But for those of you who may not know Cameron Kinley and his story, Cameron Kinley is a former Naval Academy football player, team captain. He was a stud with the Naval Academy. He, had hopes of playing professional football, the National Football League, which he did. However, it didn't come easy, right? He had to kind of go through some trials and tribulations because, as required as a graduate from the Naval Academy, you have to fulfill your years serving for the Navy upon graduation. And for him, it was a little bit different. He didn't just have the hoorah and going to the NFL. He had to kind of battle his way into the NFL. And what made that come to fruition was, the outside voice kind of bringing light to his story, right? And kind of helping him, fulfill his dream in playing National Football League football. But I think he was the perfect guest to kind of share his story. So today we have Cameron Kinley. We're going to dive a lot more into the story. But Cameron, first and foremost, bro, I truly appreciate you, as I said before we start recording, for taking your time out, and I just kind of like to give my flowers before I usually dive into the conversation, because, again, you could have been doing anything. You have many different things going on, but you took time to allow an individual that you've never met before to kind of, talk to you and interview you and kind of share your story, with my audience, your audience, and I appreciate you for that. So, guys, today we have Cameron Kinley, former Naval Academy team captain, football player. He played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a short period of time. But Cam, really quickly, man, just kind of let me know real quick, bro, a little bit about, how's your 2024 going? And then we'll dive into the combo, but just talk to the people. How's your year going so far? How are you, man?
Yeah, first off, Matt, thank you for having me on this show. A lot of times people have this platform and they're always giving flowers to the guests, man. But I understand the hard work, dedication that goes into coordinating the interviews, doing the editing, taking out of your time. So just appreciate you for creating that platform for people to give their story, share their story, share their journey with the world. So definitely that doesn't go unnoticed, man. So I appreciate you for that. But 2024 has been a blessing, man. I was looking up today and I'm like, man, we already at the halfway point, June. So, yeah, I got to kind of, reflect on the first half of the year, see where I'm at with my goals, and then try to just keep the trajectory going up. But it's been a blessing. I'm still here. Family's still here. So I'm definitely grateful for that, So just living, man. And just happy.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it, man. And before we kind of dive into the, the nitty gritty stuff, with your career and what I really want you to be able to open up to the audience about, your story in college and get into the pros. As I mentioned, I just really want to dive into who Cameron Kinley is, because I feel like there's a lot more to just, that story. Cameron is a man, he a family man, he has a career, very influential. Can you share a bit about your background and how you got into football, right? What was your background like, family life? How were the morals for Cameron Kinley kind of instilled? Did you have, parents that were very heavily involved in your life? Kind of like, what was your background like growing up as a youngin' back in your times?
Yeah, man. So my dad, he grew up in a small town, Paris, Tennessee, probably about 2 hours from Memphis, where I was born and raised. But he grew up in a small town, man, 3-bedroom house. So he grew up sharing bedrooms with his 2 older brothers, my 2 uncles. So my dad came from very humble beginnings, but this kind of inspired a work ethic in him to make something happen, right? Like he played football. He saw football as his vehicle to get out of his current circumstances. Not that he wasn't grateful for what he had, but he knew that there was more in the world. So he was able to get a full ride scholarship, man, went to MTSU, played ball there. After he played ball, that's when he moved to Memphis, and that's where he met my mom. And immediately after he got done playing college, he started coaching Little League football. And so eventually he would start the Memphis Falcons, the youth organization I played in. But my mom, she had my older brother before she met my dad. So I don't really like the term stepbrother, man, because I grew up with him in the house. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Same roof. He was there my whole life. So my older brother Jonathan, who was a football phenomenal stud, like that guy was like my superhero growing up. Mr. Football winner in the state of Tennessee. Went on to play at the University of Illinois, all Big Ten linebacker there, and then he had like 3 years in the NFL. So I'm growing up in this football house. Is really what I'm getting at. Like my dad played. I'm watching my older brother play, and then as soon as I'm 4 or 5 years old, I'm out there playing too. And I got a younger brother 2 years younger than me. He's out there at 3, right? So we grow up playing football, little league, middle school, high school. And that's where I really developed a relationship with my dad because my dad worked the night shift. So I really didn't see him as much at home after practice. And during the day, I'm at school. So practice time was a good time for him to develop me as a young man. You know, those car rides to practice, car rides after practice, like those are some of the most memorable moments I have with my dad. And I always tell the story about my first football practice ever. I'm 5 years old. We started the Memphis Falcons, and we get out there, and my dad wants to see who's the fastest player, you know, trying to get people sorted out in their positions. And I mean, I'm a confident young dude, you know what I'm saying? I'm at recess beating everybody.
Yeah.
The neighborhood beating everybody. So I'm like, yeah, we about to race. Let's get it. And I remember I ended up losing that race to a kid who's actually like one of my best friends now. But I lose that race, and I just remember my confidence just being shot. And on the way home after that practice, I told my dad, I was like, I'm cool on this football stuff. Like, I'm going to go try something else straight like that. First practice, man. First hit of adversity. Now 5 years old, so I don't remember the complete conversation, but I do remember my dad after dinner that night. He told me to stay at the table, and he basically told me, he said, son, you know, everything's not always going to come easy in life, right? Like you'll have some wins, you'll have some losses, you're going to get hit in the face. He said, it's not the fact that you get hit in the face, you know, it's not the fact that you experience losses. He said, it's all about how you respond to that, because he said, the way that you respond to the challenges and the difficulties is going to determine the type of man that you are. Right. And we always hear Dr. MLK say it. Well, we don't hear him say it, but we always hear
it. Yeah, we know the quote.
You don't judge true character of a man by where he stands in times of comfort and convenience. You judge a true character of a man by where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. Yeah. Exactly, man. That quote is golden, right? So at a young age, my dad instilled that into my mindset. And so I didn't grow up expecting life to be easy, right? Like I grew up expecting challenge, expecting adversity. And not only that, but I grew up realizing that was necessary for me to grow into a man. You know what I'm saying? Like, not that it was easy, not that it was fun, but whenever I experienced conflict, opposition, like that was always an opportunity for me to get stretched outside of my comfort zone to grow. And I definitely owe that to my parents. Like a lot of people don't discover that till they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, and here I am, a young kid understanding that times are going to be hard, right? Like everybody, they see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they see the team captain at the Naval Academy, but they don't see me riding the bench in eighth grade, my eighth grade football team. You know what I'm saying? They don't really see me undersized in high school, but man, that's hats off to my parents. You know, they raised me to not shy away from challenge. They raised me to not be comfortable being average or being normal. They raised me in the church on godly principles. You know, I draw a lot of that stuff, draw a lot of my principles and morals from the Bible, and understanding that God has always had a plan for me, but it's up to me to walk in that purpose. You know, it's up to me to cultivate the character to carry that purpose. And I just, man, my parents really set me on that path to be able to do it.
Yeah, I love it, man. And you know, you kind of talk about perseverance and overcoming, you know, the challenges. But before we get to that, I kind of want to just really talk. This kind of pivots the conversation a little bit, which is why I love these conversations, man. You talk about, you made a heavy emphasis on your dad, man, and you know, just him being present and him kind of having that conversation with you at such a young age. Let's point out, you know, you're a 5-year-old kid, right? Maybe, you know, you of course you remembered and it meant something to you because you're sharing it, you know, 20, 25 years later. But now I kind of want you to kind of just talk to the people a little bit. Like how important is that father figure, especially when it comes to sports and, you know, just manhood and things of that sort? How important was it for you to hear that, you know, from your dad at that age, right? You know, just kind of having him kind of have that conversation with you and letting you know that, man, listen, everything ain't going to be easy. You know what I mean? If you to kind of have that, you know, a lot of people aren't fortunate, you know, to have a dad in their lives. I'm fortunate to have a dad in my life who's taught me a lot of things. So are you. So what can you say to the men out there about, you know, just the importance of fatherhood and really kind of, you know, being present although you're not a father, I believe
Nah,
you aren't.
nah.
Yeah, although you aren't a father, yeah. But how important is fatherhood, just from what you receive from yours, to those listening to that may not have a dad, or even just people, men in general? How important
Yeah,
was that for you, at that time in your life?
man, it's huge. Like I can't overemphasize enough how important it was having my father in my life, having my father present in my life, and having a father who really kind of showed me what the man of the house is supposed to look like, right? Like my parents are gonna be married for 25 years in June. My dad, he's had a good marriage, has been a great father, great husband, but he's been a great provider. Like my dad is the epitome of a humble provider. Like he's not gonna be the guy that talks about everything he does, right? Like he's gonna be the guy at church that's helping set up and helping take the tables down, right? Like he's gonna be in the parking lot ministry. He's always gonna make sure people are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
My dad taught me the importance of work ethic. Like I said, he worked the graveyard shift. He's been in the warehouse industry. Like this is somebody who's gotten it off the muscle his whole life, and he applied that to me not only in sports, right? Like which I feel like coaches can do for young men, but like he showed me the effects of that in home. He showed me the effects of that like in the house, like doing the chores, taking the trash out, cutting the grass. Like my sister, she ain't doing none of that. I got two brothers and one sister. My sister ain't cutting the grass. My sister ain't taking the trash, because that's not how it's supposed to be, right? It's not saying that she's not able to do that. It's like she shouldn't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like the men should be the ones taking on the labor of the household. And my dad showed me that. My dad showed me the importance of the man being the provider. And I think in our community, especially, there are men out there doing it, right? Which is why I love to shine the light on my father, right? But for the men who may have drifted away from it, my encouragement to you is that your son needs you in his life. Like your son needs you to be that figure in his life, especially in the world that we're growing up in today, where it's tough being a black man, right? And black women are doing what they can, right? But a black woman was never made to be alone. A black woman needs to have a strong black man right there with her, so that she's not having to play the role of both, right? And so that male figure for the young black man that's growing up, it's needed to show him how to navigate some of these difficulties in the world, to understand that it's not going to be easy, but to also understand that you're capable of persevering through it, and you don't have to sacrifice who you are to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to feel like you have to be somebody else to be a strong black man in America. Like you can stay true to who you are. But when you don't have that male figure in your life, it's sometimes hard. Like I said, shout out to the black women. I feel like they do what they can. I feel like they do a great job, but two are better than one. It talks about that in the Bible, right? Like it's easier when you have a pair to be able to raise somebody. So it's definitely true, man.
I love that, bro. Huge family, man, bro. I love that. And we could kind of pivot a little bit. Powerful message, man. And we could kind of pivot a little bit now to just your football career, and kind of you really embarking onto that journey now. What was it like playing football at the Naval Academy, right? Because it's so funny, because for me as a football fan, right, I've always looked at schools like Army or Navy or all of these military schools, and I've thought, like, how does that work, right? And not like in terms, I mean, obviously football is football, but it's like, you go to Army, you go to Navy, right? These are obviously schools where you're preparing to serve for the country.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always like, how are they doing football also? Like, how do they practice? Like, it's a little bit different than you just going away for, basic, it was just always like, I had questions about it. So for you, what was your time? How was it? What was it like playing football at the Naval Academy? When did you know that you even wanted to, be in the Navy, right?
Yeah.
How did that even come about? Like, why was the Navy something that you wanted to embark on? And how was your journey playing for the football team as you were going through, your journey at the Naval Academy?
Yeah, it's funny, man. My dream school was Vanderbilt growing up. Obviously, great academic school, SEC ball. So I'm like, this is a no-brainer for me. Didn't end up getting the Vanderbilt offer. Was talking to them a lot. You know how the recruiting stuff goes. I was real close, but never got the offer. But as a young kid, I always told my dad I was going to be his first Ivy League football player. And so I was fortunate going into my senior year. I pick up offers from every Ivy League school, right? Like, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all of them, every single one. And so I'm kind of in my mind, I'm like, okay, I just got to figure out which one I want to go to. It's really between Yale and Princeton are my main two. But I also picked up the Service Academy offers at that time, going into the summer. And my granddad's a retired Navy chief, so 20 years of service. grew up hearing his sea stories, and I've seen what the Navy has done for him and what the military has done for him. But what really did it, man, I remember being in school that year, going into my senior year, my first semester of my senior year, and I had so many teachers talking about the service academies and uncles they had or brothers they had or people they knew that went to these institutions and how well they were doing in life. And I was like, these are older people saying this. Obviously, I need to listen. They've been to where I'm trying to go. They've walked a lot more years than I have. So I started doing a little bit more research because when I first got the Army and Navy offer, I was like, I'm good. I was like, yeah, I have no ambitions to go serve at that time because I really didn't understand what it meant. Right. But as I researched the schools, it honestly became a package that I really couldn't pass up on. I'd be a fool to pass up on it. So honestly, it was a sacrifice, like, because it's not a regular school. You're not, you don't live in your own dorms off campus. Like, you're not taking online classes. You're not going out every night. It's just a different experience. But I knew I was going to develop as a student. It's a top academic school. I knew I was going to develop as a leader, like just the institution of the school and how it's ran is a leadership, like honestly, a leadership factory. And I'm still playing Division I football at a high level, right? The American Athletic Conference. So I knew I was going to get every aspect of development. I needed to be the person that I wanted to be. But I will not sit here and lie to you like it's something that I wanted to do. I went on a visit to Air Force first. It was cool, but it was too far from home. I knew my parents wanted to make games. Then I went to go visit Princeton. And to be honest with you, I had visited Princeton earlier that summer, and I felt like this was going to be the visit that kind of confirmed I was going to Princeton. But when I went up there, man, it just didn't sit right with me. I felt like I was going to be going there just because of the name of the school, not how
and not because you really love it. Okay.
Exactly. And so I canceled my visit to Yale that next week, and my last visit was Navy. And I just remember praying to God, like, if Navy's not there, I need you to show me something. You know what I'm saying? Because this is it for my visit. And I kid you not, man, we're driving across a bridge in Annapolis, Maryland, where the academy is. We're driving across a bridge that overlooks the campus on the water. And I just see the campus like bathing in sunlight. And at that moment, man, before I even stepped foot on campus, I said, this is where I'm supposed to be.
It's beautiful.
God gave me that sign, man. Like this was what was next for my journey. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't necessarily something I wanted at the time, but looking back, I'm so thankful and grateful that I made that decision. But to answer your question of like, how is it playing football there, man? The best way to say is different, right? Yeah. Like you're a full-time student, you're a full-time member of the military, and you're a full-time Division I athlete competing against other Division I athletes that don't deal with 90% of the stuff you're dealing with. And I know this because I had an older brother that played Division I football, and my little brother plays Division I football at Louisville right now. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Our experiences are drastically different, right? Like I'm in class from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., 3 p.m., and I'm going straight from class to practice, right? I'm going straight from practice to dinner, straight from dinner, studying, doing homework, right? And I'm repeating that cycle. Like I'm eating a 15-minute lunch so I can catch meetings for 30 minutes. And I'm rushing from meetings back to class. Then I'm going straight from, like, there's no downtime. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you're very busy, right? And the resources aren't the same. Like when you talk about nutrition, you talk about recovery. Like we had good stuff at the Naval Academy, but compared to some of the people we're playing, like like they're an in-conference rival. Like I've been at the University of Memphis's facilities, and I'm telling you, if we had that at Navy, it'd be a whole different story, right? But we're competing against these guys every day and every week. But I'm gonna tell you what makes a difference. What makes a difference between the academies and the rest of some of these teams, right? Like you're looking at the NIL, you're looking at the transfer portal. It's a lot of me guys, right? At a lot of these schools, right? I'm gonna call it how it is. It's business. It's a lot of people, people trying to get to the league, people trying to make a check. Like people want the spotlight. You come to the academy, man, and we all go through so many difficult things together that it strips away the individual identity that we come to the school.
Got it. Because y'all all experience the same exact things.
Everybody goes through basic training. Everybody's taking the electrical engineering, everybody's trying to pass swim class. You know what I'm saying? Like this isn't nobody's bypassing chemistry, count 3, count 2. Like everybody goes through it, right? And we take pride in our brotherhood, the Navy football brotherhood, man. And it makes us like this. And because we're so close, right? And we take pride in the little things like discipline, right? Like not having our hands on our hips, touching the line, You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to worry about the guy next to me giving 110%. The same way he doesn't have to worry about it for me. I don't have to worry about the guy next to me knowing his plays or jumping off sides. Like, it's a lot of the little things that we take pride in, being disciplined, being tough, giving elite effort, attitude, and toughness. Like, it makes us able to compete. And that's why you see things like my junior year, 2019, where we go shoot 11-2 and we finish like 21 in the country, right? And our only two losses are to Notre Dame and Memphis, who both finished top 15. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're competing against guys that don't go through what we go through because we're just a lot closer than them. We each other a little bit more than they probably do as a team. That's not speaking down on them. It's just the reality of it. Yeah. And we're just playing for something bigger than us, man. Like, we got that Navy across our team.
Yeah. I love it, bro. Man, that's beautiful, yo. And I kind of want to backtrack real quick because you spoke a lot about like just balance and just pretty much demands of being a Naval Academy student. But first question before I get to this one. So you said something about like you didn't know that this is what you kind of wanted to do in terms of serving the country. Yeah. So as an athlete going to Navy, my question is just trying to figure it out. So if you go to Navy, are you required? Like, obviously, are you required to be a member of the Navy, or can you just go there as an athlete? Like, they don't just you can just go play football, and then that means you're required to serve, right?
So this is kind of how it works. Right? So your first 2 years at the Naval Academy, I'm gonna be real with you, they're kind of like the only 2 years you got to figure it out, because it's after your second year is where you really sign the contract. Now, you take the oath as soon as you get there as a freshman. But after your second year is where you sign the contract that's binding. Like, you're saying, I'm giving, like, they call it 2 for 7, right? The previous 2 years for 7 more years, which is and then 5 years after for service.
Yeah,
it's a 5-year service commitment. Everybody knows they have this 5-year service commitment, right? It's not something that's secret. It's not something that the coaches hide. Like, they tell you, like, hey, you're gonna go serve for 5 years after. The way I'm looking at it from high school, right? As I figure out, like, I'm a high school student, I really didn't understand the military, right, and what it means to serve. Now I have a whole different impression of it, just going through the academy, meeting different people. But at a high school level, I'm looking at it as an opportunity. First off, when people graduate college, they're spending those first 3 to 5 years figuring out life anyways.
Right.
I'm like, when I graduate, I'm gonna be in a full-time job. I'm gonna develop leadership experience, and I'm gonna have the opportunity to serve my country. You know, be a part of that unique fraternity. So I mean, like I said, I don't see a way you lose with that. I'm gonna be real with you. When I went to Naval Academy, I really didn't have NFL aspirations, right? Like, my biggest thing was my parents sacrificed a lot growing up. I want to go to college for free so they don't have to worry about it. Once I got to college, in my eyes, everything else was a bonus. Like, being a starter, being team captain, being a finalist for the academic Heisman, making it to the NFL, all that stuff right there was a bonus. It was never in the plans. You know what I'm saying? It just so happened things started to line up to where it was like, I'd be a fool to not pursue this opportunity. That, of course, is a childhood dream. Everybody who plays football as a kid wants to play at the best level. But once I saw it was kind of possible, it was like, okay, I'm going to go after this and try to make it happen.
Man, that's beautiful. And to kind of the second part of that question, how was it, truly balancing the demands of being a Naval Academy student, but also an athlete, right? You spoke about, again, just always being busy. So what was your routine, if any? I mean, obviously you got to get up and do it, right? Duh. But like, but what was a routine of yours that worked for you, or how did you kind of balance the demands of doing that? Because like you said, you look at any other D1 school, they're not doing the things that you guys are doing in terms of basic trainings or all of the other things that are required of you as a unit. So for that being in addition to your football career at the Naval Academy, how did you balance the two and still kind of have great grades and be a stud athlete? Like, what kind of worked for you? Or shall I say, what was kind of your like form of therapy? Like, how did you kind of pour into your cup, and what fueled you to keep going and kind of stay disciplined and locked in?
Yeah, I got to give a huge shout out to my high school, man, because I went to an IB school in Memphis, Lausanne Collegiate School. It's one of the top schools in the country. Very strenuous academic demands, and I was a 3-sport athlete there. So at a high school level, I really started to learn how to manage my time well. Lausanne really taught me that. Like, I'm dealing with these different projects, like dealing with these hard exams, these hard tests. Like, I'm really trying to learn how to balance my time. So when I got to college, the school was a little bit challenging, but I at least had a foundation. Obviously, the D1 aspect of football provided a whole different demand than high school football, right? But my faith kept me grounded. You know, whenever I felt overwhelmed, whenever I felt overstimulated, I always went back to the word and remembered that this was the plan that God had for me, right? Like, it was about figuring out how can I make this plan work? Like, how can I walk in this? Like, God, give me the strength, give me the energy I need. But when it came to balancing the academics, the football, and I served in some leadership positions at the academy, I had a planner, man. Like, it's real simple. Like, I tell kids this nowadays. I just kept a planner, man. And at the end of every day, when I would get to my room after practice, I would look at my planner and I would see, okay, what assignments do I have to do? Okay, what meetings do I have? Okay, and I kept planners for different areas of my life. So I had an academic planner, athletic planner, and then I had like the leadership planner for like student government, whatever it was. And I would look at each of them and see, okay, what do I have for each of these? Okay, what's most important? Okay, what can I kind of kick to the curb, or what can I like afford to maybe take an L on, depending on how much stuff it was. And I would highlight those items, and I'm like, okay, let me make a to-do list. And I make a to-do list, man. And I would not go to bed till that to-do list was done. I would repeat that every single day, right? Obviously, I wasn't perfect every day, but it became a routine and rhythm for me to not forget about assignments, right? To not make negotiations with myself. Like, that's why I always tell people, you can't negotiate when you make goals. Like, you got to stay true to what you said you'll do.
Got it.
That planner, man, kept me organized, and then my faith kept me grounded. And I had a vision board, right? Every year I would make a vision board, and I would hang it up on my wall in my room. And I would always, when I walk in my room, I see that vision board, and I see where I would want to be in life 15, 20, 25, 30 years down the road. And it reminded me that I'm paying deposits. You know what I'm saying? Like, this ain't for nothing, right? Like, a lot of people, when they're working hard, they feel like it's aimless. Like, nah, this ain't for nothing. I'm doing this for a reason. It just kept me going, man.
I love it, bro. And I kind of, I want to touch on a little bit, about just the leadership aspect of football, man. I played football as well back in my high school days with hopes of playing, college football, but that didn't work out. But ultimately, right, I had the pleasure of being a team captain my senior year of high school. I was a receiver, and, leadership, it's not just given to everybody, right? I think leadership is a very, it's very imperative. So as a former team captain, for an organization or a school as such, right? The Naval Academy, where there's so many, just different personalities, so many alpha males and so many men who are, very head fast. What qualities, do you believe are essential for effective leadership, right? What qualities do you think every man or whoever, this is just general,
right?
Just leadership as a whole, what qualities do you feel are essential for every leader to have, right? Not even just in sports, but again, now we're just talking about more so just life, to lead anything, right? People, businesses, sports. What would you say in your book? And it's just all opinionated, right? Just based on your experiences and what you've been able to accomplish. What qualities do you think are essential for effective leadership?
Yeah, I think number one is definitely vision. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people will perish. Like, people are attracted to people that kind of have a vision of where they want to go in life, right? Like, they can feel them moving towards a particular direction, right? That's why all businesses have vision statements. That's why all organizations have vision statements, and people should have individual vision statements, right? Because vision is what keeps you going in a certain direction. After vision, man, you obviously got to have action. So I would say discipline is huge for a leader. You have to be disciplined. You have to be consistent, right? Like, you have to do the actions that align with your vision, because ultimately that brings me to the third point of character. Are you true to what you said you're going to do, right? Are you really who you say you are? Do your actions line up with your words? Are you all talk? Like, that's the biggest thing, especially in the football field. Like, you respect the guys that are doing what they say. You ain't respecting the talkers, right? Obviously, the people that are working hard get some respect, but it's something about somebody who says they're going to do something and they do it every time, right?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It builds influence, man. And so I feel like those are huge, and that kind of goes into like the integrity, you know what I'm saying? Like, just being somebody that can be trustworthy is obviously important. But as far as leadership, leading other people, something that I found to be very effective is connection. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, especially military, and the military has a rank structure. So I'm an officer. So the enlisted people, they're gonna respect me regardless, simply because of my rank, right? But I remember, like, day one when I got my first group of sailors, And even as I get new sailors over time, I always tell them, at the end of the day, when this is all over, if you only respected me because of my rank, I did this completely wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want you to respect me because of who I am as a person and how I made you feel and how I treated you. And so I'm really big on connection. I'm really big on developing relationships, figuring out what gets people going, what makes people tick. You know, figuring out these little things about my the people that I'm leading, right? Especially on a football team is needed because you trying to figure out how to motivate somebody during a conditioning workout during the fourth quarter. But even like in the military that I'm working in now is like I have to figure out what motivates you because when times get tough, I need to figure out how I can keep you going so that we can get this mission accomplished because our lives are on the line. You know what I'm saying? Like this is serious business. So yeah, man, I would say having a vision, being disciplined, which creates your character, integrity, and then connection.
Got it. Beautiful. And let's kind of let's just talk about it now, man, since we had your college career. So if you can just kind of elaborate more on, again, your experience again at the Naval Academy. And at what point did you know that you were going to pursue the National Football League? But also talk about, what happened in terms of you having to be able to, serve in the Navy. Like, how did that whole thing come about? If you can elaborate a little bit more on the story, just for those who aren't aware about, just what happened. How did that whole process go? And if you could just kind of backtrack really quickly and just kind of give that journey to the people really quickly to enlighten us on, that whole experience.
100%. Because I think what happens a lot is people see that story starting at, I signed with Tampa Bay, then the Navy said no.
Right.
And you hear some people like, oh, that's so messed up. Like, he should be able to go play. And then you hear some people like, oh, he has a contract, this and that, right? Like, people don't really understand what that meant for me. Not that I'm asking for sympathy, but when you understand the full journey, man, you see it a little differently. So, like I said, coming out of high school, went to the Naval Academy, not to go play professional football, to be quite honest with you. I went there because it was the complete package to develop as a man, develop as a leader, develop as a student, develop as an athlete, and at the same time, I get to serve my country after, right? So I understood the whole time this service thing was something that I was going to do, and I was happy to do it. Grandfather was proud of me, retired Navy chief. All of that was fine with me. At the time, I think when I went to the Naval Academy, I think that's where they kind of you had to go serve for 2 years before you could go play. All right. So whatever, that was the policy. Like I said, at the time, I wasn't thinking about it. Truth be told, my freshman year, midway through the season, I was traveling, it was on like 3 freshmen traveling, 3 or 5. I got moved to scout team mid-freshman year, and I was ready to quit football again. So I was ready to walk away from the game of football and just focus on the academy side of things. Yeah, man. But my dad once again stepped in and told me to keep pushing forward, keep fighting through adversity, and I'm glad he did, right? But my journey was up and down, man. So scout team freshman year, sophomore year, I started playing a little bit more, but still not really consistent, right? Still on the sideline, special team guy. And then junior year, the switch kind of finally flips, and I start all 13 games, and we end up going 11-2. And I have a pretty decent year, right? Like, I made some plays performing, and I'm like starting to fall in love with football again. My confidence is starting to come up. I'm like, yeah, man. I'm like, this is what I came to play college football. Well, this is what I always saw college football to be. Then obviously COVID hits. COVID hits in 2020. So that year is very weird, right? So we get sent home for spring break. We miss spring football. We miss summer workouts. And then we finally get back probably like mid-July. Well, actually, we get back into June. As I'm driving up to the academy from Memphis, 13-hour drive, I get in a bad car accident, end up hitting an 18-wheeler, hydroplaning and stuff, man. Really should have lost my life, probably. But I walked away from that not injured spirit. And I feel like that was God kind of preparing for the year I was about to go into. Yeah, so it was good for me to experience. Looking back, just like, I see what you were doing there, God. But yeah, so that kind of starts my year off. My senior year starts off with that car accident. But my focus is, this is my last year playing football. Let's go out with a bang, and then let's get ready to get the naval career started. Because honestly, I was getting tired of football a little bit. Division I football is not easy. Obviously, yeah, man. People see Saturday and they think, oh, yeah, this is amazing. The lights, the cameras, the action, but it's a grind, man. So I can feel my body getting tired. So going into that senior year, I get elected team captain, get nominated as a finalist for the academic Heisman. So things are looking good. Things are going as I had planned them to go. to go out with a bang. And man, midway through the season, my coach calls me into his office and they let me know I'm not going to be starting anymore. And that was tough. Yeah, that was tough. At that point, I probably started 18, 19 games in a row or something like that. And I felt like I was playing decent. Obviously, there's always room for improvement.
Right.
For me personally, I didn't feel like I was playing to the level that constituted me losing my starting job. Make sense?
Right. Yep.
But at the end of the day, I'm going to respect the coach's decision. I'm a team captain, so I just can't sit there and cry. Like, still have to come to practice every day, encouraging my teammates, building people up, whatever. But the rest of that season goes, man, it was already weird because of COVID. You know, no fans in the crowd. Parents ain't making no games. You're not getting that thrill of college football that keeps you going. And that second half of the season, man, I really didn't play that much. And so now I'm watching a journey from when I started playing football at the age of 5 come to an end. And it was not how I pictured it to be, right? So many ups and downs in the college football career. Team captain, losing my starting job. And we're playing Army, man. Army-Navy game, biggest rivalry in college football. We're playing at West Point this year because of COVID. And I go out there for the coin toss, president there, flip the coin or whatever, man. I don't get back on the field until – and I'm doing all the interviews before the game, right? So I'm on CNN, all that. You know, but the whole time I know I'm ready to play. So I remember watching that game from the sideline, man, and I finally get in with like 2 minutes left. Army's up 13-0. So all they're doing is taking knees. And I remember just looking at the scoreboard, watching the final seconds tick off. And to everybody in the crowd, you know, that's the final seconds signifying Army's about to win. But every second that ticked down, I'm like, man, that's the last seconds of my career, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember it finally hit 0. Army's going crazy because they just beat us for like the 3rd time in 4 years. But I'm just, man, I'm in the twilight zone. I'm walking across the field, and I'm just like amazed. I'm like, man, no way. Wow. Like, I'm supposed to end like this, man. But I didn't have the confidence to feel like I could go play in the NFL, truth be told. That confidence had kind of been stripped away from me from losing my starting job. And that was honestly, confidence was something I struggled with my whole football career. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, whole football career. And like, this was kind of like the final thorn in the side. And I remember, bro, getting home for Christmas that year and talking to my dad and my little brother. We were working out in the garage. I was just like, man, what do y'all think about me trying to go to the NFL? And my dad was like, you never want to live with that regret of not trying, right? He was like, you know, I think about it all the time. And my little brother was just like, if you're going to do it, you just got to go full speed, right? Like, you can't be worrying about what people are going to be saying. Can't be worried about the critics. And then my pro fight, Ryan Williams, was agents. That was his first year being an agent. Him and Mike had started a new agency, Divine Sports, Mike DeSane. Mm-hmm. And so they had already been talking to me a little bit. And so I reached out to them like, hey, like, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to do it, man. So we put the plan in action, man. But for me, honestly, trying to go to the NFL was really me trying to prove something to myself in the sense of putting faith over fear. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like God had something else to show me in my journey. Not that I was going to make it to the NFL, but kind of to teach me a lesson along the way, right? So I declared to go, man. And at the time, right, in 2019, to circle back a little bit, President Trump made a new policy that said athletes from the academy can go straight to professional sports and serve their commitment to the military after, right? So that was in 2019. So 2020, one of my teammates, Malcolm Perry, used that same policy, went to go play for the Dolphins. And there was a couple of guys from Army and Air Force that used this policy. So me using this policy was not me trying to be a pioneer or anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, people had already done it. So this is the policy I was under. And so I declare for the draft, man, and I go through the whole pre-process. I go from, you know, scouts not knowing who I am at all. Like, who is this guy? Like, I remember the first event I went to was this little combine down in Texas, man. And it's probably like 150, 200 of us. And we're sitting in this room and I'm watching like the scouts come back and they call people by their name and they go talk to them. And I'm watching everybody get up from the table and go talk to scouts except for me. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, man, I made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm like, maybe they're right. Like, maybe I just need to go ahead and focus on the military or whatever. I'm like, I made a mistake, man. But that next day when we actually put the cleats on and went out on the field, I was able to do well. And I started talking to scouts from there. And I went to the Hula Bowl in Hawaii. The hype continued to build up. But this is another thing people really don't think about is COVID, right? And I'm at the Naval Academy. We're probably the most restricted campus in the country at this point, right? Like, we can't campus. And not only can we can't leave, people really can't come on, and our facilities are shut down. So I'm training for my pro day. outside with no weight room, and I'm getting
right.
me workouts. You know what I'm saying? He's
Right.
sending me workouts. I'm recording it, sending it to him. Like, this is how I'm training for an NFL pro day, where everybody else is in Florida, Texas, California, having a nutrition plan, you know, getting the recovery, getting these crazy workouts. I'm doing pull-ups in my shower. I'm doing these sprints in the Maryland code. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how I'm getting it. And the whole time I'm doing this training for my pro day, I don't even have a pro day. You know what I'm saying? Like, Navy doesn't even have a pro day scheduled because of the COVID restrictions, right? So I'm really putting faith over fear. You know, I'm really like, you know, they say faith is the absence of things hoped for. I mean, substance of things hoped for and the absence of things not seen. Like, I'm taking that next step, even though I don't see the full staircase. And then Navy is getting close, and Navy's still not, you know, offering a pro day. And so I called down to the University of Memphis. They end up saying I can come down and participate in their pro day, and the academy approves it, lets me go. I find out the academy is going to let me go 6 hours before my flight. You know what I'm saying? I'm operating in faith.
Crazy.
Yeah, man, I submit the paperwork, but it's COVID, right? They're trying to debate if they're going to let me go. My bag's packed, and I'm just sitting in my room waiting for the email. And then the email finally comes through, man. I get my stuff, run out, get to the airport, and I fly down there to Memphis, man. All 32 teams there. Memphis welcomed me in. Thankfully, shout out Coach Silverfield for that. And I mean, nerves were crazy, but
I bet
I'm a good pro day at Memphis, man, in front of all 32 teams. Wow. And at that point, I started talking to like 16 teams. And that was at that moment right there was the first time along the whole journey I was like, okay, I might have a shot. You know,
you might get a shot. You might can do it.
Yeah, man. I was like,
that boosted you up a little bit. Yeah, that boosted you up a little bit.
I was like, okay, this is cool. And then after the Memphis Pro Day, Navy ends up figuring stuff out. So we end up doing a Pro Day at Navy. The Ravens and the Commanders came through, but that was cool because I got a chance to work out with some of my boys in front of my teammates. Yeah. And then that was it. Hay was in the barn, man. And I remember draft day rolled around. I didn't really expect to get drafted, but had a little draft party with the family. 7th round ended, not drafted. And I remember I looked at my little brother, man, because, you know, I always tried to set the example for him. And even though I didn't expect to get drafted, I felt like I had let him down. So the emotion started to come up a little bit, man. Tears rolling out. And my uncle, he takes me outside of the restaurant we're in D.C., and we walk down the street, man. And by the time we get to the end of the street, I get a call from Mike, and he's like, hey, man, the Kansas City Chiefs want to sign you. And I'm like, let's do it. And then like 2 minutes later, he's like, Tampa wants to sign you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go down to Tampa. You know, I'm not going to lie. I was kind of riding the wave. They just won a Super Bowl down there in Tampa, Florida, Tom Brady. Like, I'm trying to go down there to Tampa, you know. But I always think about it there. I'm like, man, maybe I should have went to Kansas City. Maybe I would have.
Yeah, because
hey, I probably had me about 4 raise maybe. But now it's all good. Man, yeah, man, I get that call, and I tell you, to this day, man, when I think about that moment, and I see my mom crying, and I see my dad crying, and I embrace the both of them, and they're like, you did it. You know what I'm saying? And they were just so proud of me, man. Everything was worth it right there. Like, I didn't need anything else to happen, dog. Like, they knew everything I had been through since I was a kid. You know, they watched this little kid. My dad saw me quit after my first football practice. He saw me, you know, be scared to tackle people in Little League practice and run away from contact and chewing me out for being soft and getting the 8th grade riding the bench, getting to high school being undersized, but, you know, eating the peanut butter at night, you know, getting the extra workouts in. Like, they saw all that, you know what I'm saying? They heard the calls of me crying when I was in college, and I wasn't happy with the way things were going, and I was frustrated, you know, ready to give up. Like, they was on the phone with me for hours. You know, they saw every piece of the journey, man. And so for them to see their son, like, be able to make it to his dream and not get it handed to, right? Like, this wasn't handed. Nobody could ever say that was handed to me, man. Absolutely. I wouldn't have took that. You know what I'm saying? And they knew that. So that moment was huge, bro. And I had all my friends around me, man. It was beautiful, right? So we go from there, right? At this point, working with the academy, get everything, all the paperwork shipped off, you know, sign my contract, and I go down to rookie mini camp that next week. And I knew I need to have a good rookie mini camp being an undrafted guy to try to make the team. And first practice, I get pick 6, you know, and I'm balling. Like, I'm telling you, man, for the first time in my life, I could feel myself being confident on the football field. Wow. I wasn't worried about anything else. I'm not worried about the coach. I'm not worried about the news. All I'm focused on is football. I don't have to deal with school, none of that. Like, people don't understand the NFL, like that professional level, you have everything you need. A lot of colleges, you get some of that stuff, some of the resources. Like, but for me, like some of the stuff I didn't have that. And so I'm like, game over. I'm on an even playing field now. All I got to do is play football, take care of my body, know my plays, and play football. Like, I'm like, man, this is over. Like, everything's good. I'm on cloud 9, man. Like, you can't paint a better picture of my life at this moment. And I'm going through rookie mini camp. I'm balling, and then I'm seeing the articles like, you know, undrafted rookie from Navy, like really good shot to make the team. Like, hype is building up. And then I go back to the academy to graduate because I was class president. So I had to give the graduation speech, and I was presenting Vice President Kamala Harris with a gift. But there was no missing graduation. Yeah. And man, I kid you not, I fly into Maryland that Sunday night, go through our commissioning week, our graduation week's like a whole week of festivities. So I go through the festivities on Monday. I'm laying down in my bed Monday night. I get an email saying that the commandant of midshipmen wanted to meet with me, who's kind of like the direct. I don't know what they'll call it at a civilian school, but you know, you got the superintendent that's kind of like the head of the school, and then you got the commandant, the dean. The dean of students is what I would probably call him. And so my battalion officer, who's kind of my direct representative for my battalion, the way the academy's set up, he's also CC'd in the meeting. And I text him, I'm like, hey, do you know anything about this? And he was like, nah, nothing. So I'm like, okay. But I'm uneasy, man. I'm uneasy. I'm like, I don't like this. Like, him one like it was, he just felt like I'm like, I'm hoping there's something to do with like graduation and class. But man, I kid you not, that next day I get in the meeting, man. We're sitting at the top floor of this new building at the academy, beautiful office, conference room overlooking the water, man. The jets flying and stuff, like scenery's great. And the commandant, he straight up comes in and says, I called this meeting to let you know that the Secretary of the Navy declined your package. You're not going to be able to go play in the NFL. Straight like that. You know what I'm saying? And there was another guy in there, one of my classmates that was a baseball player that wanted to go play in the MLB. But the MLB draft is in like June, July. So he hadn't been drafted yet. You know what I'm saying? He just wanted to go play.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, there's no appeal process, none of that. Like you're graduating on Friday. And I knew once I commissioned, I was under big Navy rules instead of that Naval Academy. Under the Naval Academy rules, that's what allowed me to go to rookie mini camp while I was still a midshipman. But under big Navy, I can't have any like outside employment for real and still be in the Navy. So I knew it was an issue, man. And I really didn't know what to do. But the part that really kind of set me off was the fact that there were 3 players from Air Force and 1 player from Army that were coming out the same year as me, also signed NFL contracts that got approved. You know what I'm saying? At that point, I'm like, okay, 4 people got approved, but I'm the only one you're saying no to.
Right.
It's not adding up. You know what I'm saying? This isn't something where it's like, yeah, I'm going to take the card I'm dealt. You know, like people always like, oh, you got to fight that shit. Yeah, baby about it. I'm like, man, you don't understand. It was 4 people doing this same thing that I was trying to do. Like, why aren't you bringing them up into this conversation as well? Why aren't you telling them to go serve? Right? Why aren't you telling them that they had a contract? Right? You're only saying this to me, right? So it was very interesting, man. And we were trying to go through some of the back channels and stuff to try to figure this thing out, but nothing was going effective. And I had to report to mandatory minicamp by like June 8th, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it. So I put out a statement. And after that statement went out, man, blew up. The story was everywhere. I'm doing interviews on CNN, Fox, you know, TMZ, everything. Good Morning America is getting exhausting, right? I'm saying the same thing over and over again. People still taking what I'm saying and misconstruing it. And, you know, it's crazy, man. Yeah, man. And it was honestly draining. Like, at that point, I was like, man, I'm done with this. I don't even care anymore. I go serve, like, yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it's going for this.
We good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, man, so I'm doing these interviews and it honestly starts to get exhausting. I'm at the point where I don't even care anymore. I'm like, y'all got it. You know, it is what it is. I'm just about to go focus on my military career because I'm doing interviews from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. By the time I get off the camera, you know, and it's all on Zoom and I'm talking about the same things over and over again. I don't even feel like working out. You know, I don't even feel like dealing with any football. I'm trying to get away from it. Yeah, man. So, it's crazy. So I do this little media cycle. Probably for about 3 weeks, and I was supposed to report back to the academy by the end of June, right? So at this point, we're in the last week of June, and I see Senator Marco Rubio post something on Twitter from Florida, and he says, "I'm gonna send a letter to President Biden about this. It's a messed up situation." And honestly, I'm so numb to stuff at this point. Like I see that, and I'm like, "Cool." Like that's all.
It
Like you
wasn't.
know what
It
I'm
wasn't.
saying?
It wasn't even like a
Yeah,
please or
man.
like. It was
That's
just
the
like
way he
whatever, bro.
is. Like,
Yeah.
cool, got you. Like a lot of people at this, like they were talking about me at congressional hearings. You know, like at
Wow.
this, I became so numb to so many things that it was what it was. Because in my mind, I'm like, this shouldn't be this big of an issue. There's
Right.
4 people doing this. I'm trying to be the 5th. Why are we taking this long to get this figured out? I'm missing OTAs. I'm missing mandatory minicamp.
You're
I'm
missing.
missing the workouts I need to be at. I'm missing everything I need to be at to make the team. At this point, sending me back down there is really doing nothing for me. It's how I see this situation. That's how frustrated I am. But Senator Marco Rubio says that, and then the weekend before I'm supposed to go back to the academy, I get a call saying that they want to meet with me as soon as I get back. And I go to this meeting, and it's me, the assistant to the Secretary of the Navy, and some other officials there. And they basically tell me that they have a way to reverse the decision, right? And I'm like, I thought there was an appeal process. I'm like, we don't win a month, and you're telling me you just
Nah,
now
you
coming
still
up with
be
this. Yeah, you know. So I'm like, whatever, it is what it is. But we end up appealing it, man, and everything ends up getting kind of turned around. I get a call from the Secretary of Defense, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna let you go play." And this is like a week before training. It's about 10 days before training camp, 10 to 12 days before training camp. And then I get a call from the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, and he's like, "Yeah, President Biden came to me about the situation, told me to figure something out." And I'm like, "Man, this is all crazy." You know, like the fact that the president had to get involved to
It's
do this.
crazy.
I'm just like,
Yes.
yeah, man. But like I said, at this point, man, all I'm really thinking about, like once I get the reversal, all I'm thinking about now is I have to make the team. You know, before it would have been nice to make the team, but I'm still an undrafted guy from
All I
Navy.
have
So
to do.
people, yeah, you know what I'm saying? There's not as much pressure. But now I'm not the same Cameron Kinley that went down to Tampa at the beginning of May.
Right.
Like
It's
Cameron
cooking.
Kinley, yeah, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Cameron Kinley that went down to Tampa in the middle of July wasn't somebody that wasn't the guy that they didn't really have expectations for, right? Like now people kind of know who I am. Like I'm walking around Tampa, the city of Tampa, just going to go get a smoothie or something. And people stop me, ask for pictures and stuff. Like I'm not used to this. I've been an underdog my whole life. I'm not used to getting the attention. And I could just feel that pressure, man. And on top of that, obviously I hadn't been training like I was training before, you know. I should have been, but I wasn't. Like, just truth be told, I wasn't. So I really wasn't prepared physically either to go back to training camp. I was in a decent place, but not to
It
be
just wasn't where
competing
you
against.
got you.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly. Not to be competing against Hall of Famers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm lining up against Antonio Brown, Mike Evans at this point, and Tom Brady's throwing on the ball. Like, this isn't something you just
it's
walk
crazy.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And so when I got back down there for training camp, I remember the first 2 weeks, man. I hated my life. Like, I just was tired of dealing with the pressure. I was tired of dealing with the lack of confidence and going out there and not performing how I was performing when I first went down there. And I just kept thinking about the fact that, man, if the Navy wouldn't have done this, if the Navy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm real frustrated my first 2 weeks back down there. And then like midway through training camp, man, I finally reground myself. It's a funny story. My sponsor family was actually in Tampa the same time I was, wanted to give me a graduation gift, and they gave me the John Maxwell Leadership Bible. And I feel like that was a sign from God to kind of reground my focus. He said, right now you're so focused on pleasing everybody else that you forgot the whole reason that got you here. You know what I'm saying? Like he was like, the Cameron Kinley before was centered on faith, but now you're centered on attention. Now you're centered on the media. Now you're worried about what other people are going to say about you. And so I recentered myself to only focus on playing for an audience of one, and things started changing real quick in training camp. And I started looking like the same guy that was at rookie mini camp, and I was making plays in practice, getting my feet underneath me. And then we went to the first preseason game against the Cincinnati Bengals. I played pretty solid, second on the team in tackles, you know, really didn't give up any big plays. Played solid enough to stay on the team in my eyes. Parents came down for the game, you know, they got to see me play. it was a childhood dream come true. And then that next morning, man, I dropped my parents off at the airport. I'm driving back to the team hotel to get some rest, and I get a call from the Buccaneers saying that they were releasing me, man. Just like that, first preseason game after everything, just like that. So it was tough, man. I went into that's the football side of it. But that's how everything turned out, man.
Yeah, bro. Wow, that's a crazy story, man. I could just only imagine. It's just such a constant, up and down
roller coaster
of emotion and confidence, and just like I could only imagine the amount of personal interior work that takes on a person, and just having to deal with all of that. But just to kind of move on a little bit, because I don't want to have it for too long tonight. Looking back at your entire journey, and from high school to college to Naval Academy to your career and your football career, is there anything that you would have done differently in your career up until this point? Is there anything that you feel like you will look back and change? Anything you feel like you would do differently now that you look back at everything in your life?
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything, man. I wouldn't change anything simply because I wouldn't be who I am today without the way everything went. I wouldn't have the perspective I have on life. I wouldn't have the character that I have. I just wouldn't be the same person. The only thing that I would do differently is I would appreciate some of the moments more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the highs and the lows. Like I would appreciate some of the moments I felt like the king of the world, but I also would appreciate some of the moments where I felt the lowest, to really identify the lessons that were taking place in there. One thing now that I'm able to do is I'm able to look back on the journey and identify different lessons that took place in different moments of my life. But one thing I'm trying to do better is catching those lessons in the moment and not 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if you catch them in the moment, you can kind of apply them quicker. That can kind of set you on a different trajectory going forward. So I would just try to identify lessons at a in the moment, appreciate moments more. But as far as changing anything, like people always ask, would you go to the Naval Academy again? 110%. I don't regret it at all. Like I have zero regrets about going to the Naval Academy. They're like, would you try to go to the NFL again? I'm like, of course. Like, yeah, I got cut after the first preseason game, but I still got a chance to watch Tom Brady operate at a first-hand point of view.
That's crazy. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's a blessing. It sucks like how everything worked out, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it all, man, because I wouldn't be who I am without it. Yeah,
that's beautiful. What legacy? As a man, bro, I think our biggest thing is just really leaving. Just the work that we leave behind. In life. What legacy do you hope to leave behind, man? Both in the world of sports and in your military service, just as an individual. What legacy do you hope to leave behind? Just through your entire experience, man. What's the biggest thing you hope to leave?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest thing, man, what I always try to inspire the youth, especially, when I think about leaving footsteps behind for other people to follow. And in terms of what direction I want that to do, in terms of what I try to bring out of other people is, man, whatever you're passionate about, whatever your purpose is, like I really want to see you go after that and try to achieve it. Right. That's why I always put my dreams on display. Like I always tell people when I'm trying to do something, I always grind in open in public, not to get attention or recognition, but I think it does something when people can follow you along the process and then they see it coming to fruition. You know what I mean?
Perspective.
Yeah, man. Like I want you to see the bad end. I'm not just posting when it goes well. You know what I'm saying? Like you're here along every step of the journey. I am who I am, so that when you see it happens, you see that it's possible. So I want to show people that it's possible. Whatever you want to go achieve in life, it's possible. Whatever you want to do, it's possible. As long as you put the work in, as long as you keep the faith, right? It's possible for you. And I just hope that I set a good example for people to follow, man, to chase after their dreams, goals, and live a life that God has called us to live, most importantly, because everybody has a calling and a purpose.
I love it, bro. So what do you so as of right now, I know you aren't, active in an NFL or playing football.
Yeah.
What are you currently doing? Are you currently serving? What are you currently doing right now? With your time, what are you doing as a career, as a living, right now in your life?
Yes, I got a couple things going on, man. My primary occupation obviously is an active duty naval officer. I'm an intelligence officer out here on the West Coast. So do some things there, get a chance to really work with sailors, develop them, lead them to try to accomplish a very important mission. So I get a lot of leadership fulfillment out of that, just helping people grow, try to instill some, motivation and inspiration in them. I coach at the high school out here where I am. So I get a chance to, stay connected to the game of football, mentor some of the next generation, share some of the lessons I've learned with them. I do a lot of public speaking, a lot of keynote speaking, based off of my experiences, because I think everybody has a story. And I think you never know who needs to hear your story. So Don't be scared or discouraged, because it happened for a reason. So I share my story with kids all over, man, and just try to show them failure is a part of the process and that it's a necessary step in the process to keep going on in life. And even when you achieve what you want to achieve and it still doesn't work out, you're still able to keep moving forward, right? Like the NFL dream didn't work out for me, but here I am still going. So I do that too. And then I'm also getting into some business consulting, man. I help businesses grow while maximizing their profit, and their productivity. So getting started in that now. But I'm blessed, man. I have a lot of different areas keeps me busy, but I'm thankful. Yeah.
I love it, bro. Just for the sake of time, we're going, I'm gonna wrap it up here. But Cam, bro, I'm inspired by your story. I'm inspired by just, everything, your perseverance. But more importantly, bro, I just kind of want to point out, I'm most inspired and moved just by, just your genuity, man. I can just kind of hear the tonality in your voice. You can just tell that you're an individual who truly means what you say, right? You don't just kind of come on here and kind of give a facade of, I'm just this guy who, went through this experience, but because it's a big story, let me just kind of, come on here and try to make it sound good.
Right.
You really experience these things and you really kind of making, you kind of really talking about it. And I can just kind of hear the, the passion in your voice. So I appreciate, what you do for our people. I appreciate you most importantly for serving our country, bro. And, I just pray and hope, everything goes in your favor in the future, all of your future endeavors. Again, thank you for taking the time out to hopping on tonight. I know it's a little bit earlier where you are, but hopefully at some point, we could get to meet up in person and, really get to fellowship and probably have another in-person interview and really kind of make the experience a little bit different. I think that's really, the goal and the vision for us moving forward. But I appreciate you, bro. And is there any last thing you would like to share with the audience or anything you working on or any last message you would like to give to the people before we, get out here? How can the people stay connected with you?
Now, man, I appreciate you, man. Once again, I appreciate you for your platform, everything you do, getting people's story and voices out there, man. So thank you for taking the time for having me, man. I've enjoyed this conversation. It's always like therapy for me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I love it.
Reflecting on the journey, man. So I appreciate that, man. But yeah, I mean, I got my first book out, Identity. It's actually about to hit a year, thinking about 4 days now. I think June 6th, maybe June 7th I dropped it the same date that I kind of dropped my statement that I got denied by the Navy. So I think it's June 7th, June 6th, but we're about to hit a 1 year. Then sold over 500 copies. So it's on Amazon, man. Identity, Finding Purpose Through the Storm. So I appreciate it. People support me with a copy of that, but you can find me on Instagram at CK3 The Thrill, CK3 The Thrill. That's THRILL Thrill. But yeah, man, appreciate you once again.
Of course, brother.
Everybody out there, keep doing what you're doing, man.
Let's do it. Cam, my guy, I appreciate you. I will definitely have, all of this content and stuff for you. If, we could collab on some posts, I'll just
1,000%.
clips. We could do it, but keep doing your thing, bro. If I'm ever on the west side at some point and, I'm sure to hit you up, bro. So
most definitely, bro.
Keep doing your thing, brother. Appreciate you.
Easy day. Appreciate you.
Peace.